Hello, and welcome to the Polk Pioneer Oral History Program, a collaboration between the Polk County Historical Association and its heritage partners, the Polk County History Center, and Polk Government TV. I'm Jennifer Bush, a board member of the Polk County Historical Association. Thanks for joining us today, as I have the pleasure of interviewing Mrs. Catherine Maultsby Reddick, who's been nominated for Polk Pioneer recognition by the Friends of the Museum of Winter Haven History. Mrs. Reddick is a lifetime resident of Polk County, and she'll be sharing personal memories about her life. Mrs. Reddick, let me just say congratulations on this honor, and thank you so much for joining us today and talking a little bit about your history.
Oh, okay, about my history.
Yes, ma'am. So let's start at the very beginning. Let me ask you, when and where were you born?
I was born on Lake Lulu. Lake Lulu. My mother and my grandmother and my great-grandmother was there in this little house. I think I have a picture of it. But we were raised in that house on Lake Lulu. There was a doctor, Dr. Laura, that my grandmother took care of her and her, just her. She was a doctor. And what we would do was she would take me over there every day. I sat in a little stool. The little stool turned out. I sat there and I played and whatever, I had to do. But that's where we were on Lake Lulu. That's where I was born. So that was my beginning. And it was all women there. My mother, my grandmother, and my great-grandmother was there, and they took care of Dr. Laura. She was a doctor.
Tell us a little bit about your siblings, your brothers and sisters.
Okay, again, I was the first one. Then there was Gladys, Eddie, Elliot, which passed away. Now there's Valerie, Olivia, and Jeffrey. Those are the siblings.
And you were the oldest?
I'm the oldest, yes, ma'am.
Well, how about your parents? Talk a little bit about your parents, your mom and your dad, and what did they do?
My mother worked she went up north and worked. My father went into the military, but then he came back, and I did a lot with the children. Me being the oldest, I was responsible for making sure that they got what they needed. So that was my job. I had to make sure. It was 7 of us, and I was the oldest. Again, I was the number 1. So I had to make sure that they were taken care of.
So what kind of things did you do with the kids?
I did the cooking. I did cooking, and I was young. Again, I had to help do the cooking and make sure that they were taken care of. So we had to do laundry. We did everything, and Gladys was next to me, so she was the girl. She was the girl. So we had to make sure that those kids were taken care of. So
wow, that was a lot of responsibility.
That was a major responsibility. During that time, they didn't have the automatic washers and dryers. We had to wash the clothes and hang them on the line, and then we had to fold them, and we made it. We did well.
So I guess your mom taught you all of those things and
yes.
how to take.
Yeah, my mom taught us what to do, and we had to do it. Yes. And then I had to do a lot of the teaching too, me being the oldest of 7 kids.
Really?
Yes.
Now, how did you teach the kids? What did you do to teach them?
Well, they did exactly what I told them to do. they learned from me. The cooking and everything we had to do, they learned, and they learned well, and they were very respectful of me. Yes.
That's good. And tell me a little bit. We were talking earlier about your dad. Talk a little bit about him and talk about what he did.
Again, he was in the military, and he came home. But when he came home, he did a lot of traveling on the road. He did truck driving. He did the truck driving. He was gone a lot. And my mother, she didn't work all the time, but she went up north to take care of families up there. A lot of the black women went north to take care of the families that traveled up north. So that left me to make sure that the kids got taken care of.
And you were saying that your father, when he was young, what you were telling me about him working in the groves?
Yes,
talk a little bit. Did he tell you?
All of the boys that was seeing that they worked, and all of them started out in the groves, but most of them went to the military after they got old enough to go into the military.
Wow. And then I also understand you have an uncle, Albertus Maultsby.
Yes, he was one of the boys that went into the military, and he came back. Yes, he's still around and doing well. I hope I make it to be as old as he is, you know.
Well, let's talk about your childhood. It sounds like you were an excellent cook and took good care of your siblings while your parents worked. But talk about the fun side of childhood. What did you do? What did you do as kids? And tell me about the neighborhood you grew up in.
Oh, okay. What I did was we moved to Lake Alfred when my daddy came back out of the military. So I started school there. But the interesting part of my schooling in Lake Alfred was I started in the 1st grade. Then I went to 2nd grade, 3rd grade, 4th grade. They're kind of moving around. But I ended up being double promoted one year. I took 2 grades in 1 year, 4th and 5th. So at the end of the 5th grade year, I went to the 6th grade, but I did 4th and 5th the same time. I went to the 6th grade. So I was double promoted, and that was very exciting to me. I took 2 years in one in the little schoolhouse. So then we were bused into Florence Villa after that, and I was the youngest one in that situation because I did 2 years in one.
So then you went to that was elementary. Then
Yes.
you went. Tell us about your high school, your junior and your high school.
We were bused to Jewett into Winter Haven. And I was chosen as a majorette. I did majorette in the little band that we had. So I kept excelling wherever, everywhere I went. So that was a major thing for me, that I was able to do 2 years in one and then go to high school. So I thoroughly enjoyed that. I was a majorette in the band, like I said, and everything I did, I tried to do a very good job of doing that. I was taught to be, whatever I could do a good job of doing that. So I did 2 years of school in one.
Wow. So it sounds like fun being in the band, the being a majorette.
Yes, I was
Were there any special memories that you remember about the fun of being in the band like that?
Well, I just remember just being a majorette in the band. That was an interesting thing for me. I enjoyed it. It was a lot of fun. And I was a majorette until I graduated from high school at Jewett, 1960. I graduated in the class of 1960.
So you graduated, how old were you when you graduated?
16. I was 16. So I took 2 years of school in one.
I understand you and was it your aunt or your sister were valedictorians at the same time? You were a valedictorian?
Me and Josephine. Yeah, she's passed away now. Both of us were in the same grade, and we did well. Yeah, we did well.
You were valedictorian. Tell us about that. How did you get chosen as valedictorian?
Well, we were in an all-black school, so they did, they what they do, total up the scores and everything, and then you come out whatever. If you at the top of the class, then you at the top of the class.
So what did you do upon graduation at that young age?
Let me try to think back what I did. Where did I go? I did, when I graduated, after I graduated, I did a class in general office practice. So I went to a class, and then I kept moving up. Yeah, I did a general office class. At that time, Polk was just starting with a vocational school. So that's where I went to get my training as far as in office, general office practice.
Do you have some, I don't know, special memories about the friends that you went to school with? What did y'all do? What did the kids do for fun? What did you do for fun back at that time?
Not a whole lot. We didn't do much. We had to go home and do, whatever we had to do. But I had a lot of friends, in school. Some of them had passed on. Some of them are still living, and we had so many years that we were after Jewett. They had a year of celebrating each class. So we did that. We still get together sometimes. We still have some of them are still living. So we do whatever we do. We go to church together. We meet up at church, and we still kind of stay together as far as the class of 60. So.
And so you said you went to Polk County Technical and Vocational?
Yes, they had a school at the air base. They had a school at the air base, so I went there. And then during that time, they built a school, and it's still out to Polk Technical School. It's not. It's out on the highway. Yeah, it's a vocational school.
Yeah, the Travis.
Yes, that's Travis. Yes, that's Travis. So I worked at Travis several years. Wow. Yes, I worked at Travis.
Well, let's talk a little bit about your husband. Tell me about your husband, and how did you meet? What was your courtship like?
Yeah, we met in high school. They were in Florenceville, and I was in what we call Pewsville. So we were bused over, and we met in high school. So then during that time, there was not too much excitement, as far as yes, but we met, and we pretty much stayed together, and we're still together. Yes, and his health is not good, so he can't go around too much. But my health is still excellent, so I still move around a lot. So.
That's good. Well, what did y'all? I mean, when you dated, what kind of things did you do? Where did you go? Did they have school dances and things like that, or what did y'all do?
They had school dances. He played basketball and football, so we went to the games that they did, and me being in the band, we were there, so that was exciting to do, and that was pretty much. We didn't do a whole lot. There was not a whole lot to do back that time. They didn't have major excitement. We just kind of stayed together.
And that's not a bad thing. That's not a bad thing.
I'm not sure.
How long did y'all date before you got married?
Probably about 5 years. Yeah, 5 years. Mm-hmm.
And so how long have you been married now?
We got married in '68, I think. We've been married a long time. That was the only marriage I had. I wasn't going anywhere. No. But we still together from that time, from high school on through now.
That's awesome. That's awesome. What would you say are maybe some keys to a successful marriage? You've been together so long.
I don't know. I don't know whether I could tell anybody what to do. It's some ups and downs. It's ups and downs, and you just have to stay with it, And when I started to work and continue to work, we were not together that much, but we stayed together.
Now, what did your husband do?
He was a mechanic. Diesel mechanic, so he worked on trucks. Yeah.
So let's talk a little bit about, you were talking about when you went to work. What was your first job? And let's hear a little bit about your career and your work history.
Oh,
What was the
okay.
very first job you had?
My first job was, like I said, at Vocational Technical Center. When they did Travis, I worked out there.
What did you do?
Work in the office. I did office work. Yes. So I worked out there a long time. Then I started to have the children, and I couldn't just continue to work. Yes. So that was the first thing that I always was interested in general office practice. So my first job that I stayed with when I got into the housing industry, I know you saw that I had been 53 years in Polk County doing affordable housing, assisting people with living, as well as they could live for as less money as they could. So that was my passion. And I did that a lot of years. That's when I just retired just recently. I was 79 years old when I retired.
But how did you even get into the affordable housing industry? How did you even get started? Was it someone that you knew that,
Well,
how did you get into that?
When I went to Haines City, I started. I was working with they started the Jacksonville office of U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development started housing programs, and I started with the first program that they had, and they came to Haines City, and I worked for Haines City. We started drawing plans for houses. Claude Holmes was there at the time. He was the mayor. So I started working with him, and I worked with him about 6 or 7 years trying to get going. So William Drummond was the city manager, and he's passed away, after that. He took me one day and took me down to Polk County. He told me that it was time for me to move on. So he took me to Polk County, and they hired me at Polk County, and I worked for Polk County like 20-something years, about 24 years, I think. So I've been pretty steady, all of my life. Mm-hmm.
Yes, you have. You have been very,
pretty steady. I didn't move around a whole lot. Mm-hmm. So.
We'll talk a little bit more about, about your career. What were some of your responsibilities?
Well, when I went to Polk County, I was the director of housing and urban development there. And I had a staff, I had a major staff, and we did everything that we could to get people in homes. So a lot of people got homes to where, and a lot of them were rental at that time, low income rental homes. So we had to compute the rent, qualify them, and get them in somewhere to live. There was not a lot of apartments back during that time. That's been a long time ago. But since then, they're building apartments everywhere. So I don't know whether the people that I work with would be able to afford these now, but some of them are. Some of them can. So we work with getting them in the homes and computing their rent and see if they qualify to stay there. So they did. A lot of them are still in the apartment.
What were some of the, what were some of the biggest challenges in your job? What was some of the
in the industry?
What was the hardest?
Well, there was not a major challenge for me. I just had to have a staff, and we had to be taught. We traveled a lot. The office was in the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development was in Jacksonville. So we traveled back and forth. They had a lot of programs that we had to learn, and that's what we did. Mm-hmm. So that's what I've done. The major part of my the part of my life that I really enjoyed, and it took me some thinking to really think about retiring, but it was time. Yeah, I was 79 years old. It was time to go home and enjoy just sitting around and that's not fun either. So I really enjoyed all of the years that I spent from several of the housing authorities in the area. I left Haines City and went to Bartow. Then I went to Winter Haven, and I was there a lot of years. So I can look back and see some of the things that I've done all of the years. Yeah.
Yeah, that's got to be a passion. It sounds like it's your passion.
Yes, to help. It was a passion to be able to help people to get into something that they had never done before. And it's a learning curve, but that was okay. Yeah, we had to learn a lot. And a lot of the regulations changed from one year to the other, but you had to travel around and make sure that you kept up with what was going on as far as new regulations.
Well, your career spanned quite a number of years in that industry, and I'm just wondering what, you know, thinking back in the earlier days in the industry, how has it changed? What have been some of the significant changes?
It's not a lot of change because they have to stay with the regulations. You always have to stay within the boundaries of the regulations, and now they have a lot more that they can do for the people. You know, you can do a lot more for the people that can't afford it. If you see on TV a lot, we're over in Tampa where they are always building new homes, and you have to work with that. So it's a joy to see that so many people were able to get houses that otherwise they couldn't do it. And there are some of them that they don't pay anything to live. That, you know, you can, according to what your income is, you can pretty much live free. So it's a joy to be able to assist people with getting. That's why I stayed with it so long, because it really was something that I had a passion for.
Now, so when you were working, what ages were your kids at the time? When did the career come in with raising your children?
It just worked together. It worked together. The kids grew up, and they knew that and a lot of when I was in Haines City, a lot of the kids, I took to school every day. They knew that I was going to Haines City, so I dropped them off at school and went to work. But that was a joy too. And then my kids played a lot of sports. They played baseball, and I carried all of the kids in the community to the baseball game. And they still respect me for that. Yeah, they still respect me for that. They come around and, you know, talk to me, and I've enjoyed all of the years that I put in. And I had to think about coming out at 79 years old, but it was time. Yeah, it was time.
And talking about your kids, I don't know if I'd ask you, how many children do you have, and where are they now?
I have 3 living, but I had 2 that passed away.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah, the latest one was my son that was a corrections officer, and he had a heart attack, yeah, and he passed away. So my daughter was only like 5 years old, and she died with something like meningoencephalitis. So I have the 3 living.
That must have been really hard on the family.
Both of them. Yeah, she was only 5, and he was working. Yeah, he was older, much older. So
I'm
he was
sorry.
a correction officer, and I had 2 of them.
Well,
but I made it through that, and I think the work helped. It helped me to get through all of that, because I was out working with other people, and it was hard, but I made it. So I guess I'm good and strong. So
one thing I wanted to talk to you a little about is your church involvement.
Oh, a lot. Yes, I've been involved with the church. Our church was, again, on it was in what they call Pewsville. You know where that? Do you know anything about Pewsville? You've heard about Pewsville. That's where our church was. In 1975, we built a new church. It's over on the Florence Villa side. So I've always been in church. I like to sing. I still do that. As old as I am, I still do that. But I've been an officer in my church ever since they moved the church in 1975. So I'm on the cornerstone at the church, and I enjoy church. I'm in the Missionary Society. I do a lot with that. And like I say, I'm a steward in the church, so that's next to the pastor. So I've been that steward a lot of years. So I'm still active, even though I'm getting older. I'm very active, and I think that's what keeps me strong, being active. Yes, I'm very involved with the church. I sing a lot, like I said, and I enjoy it.
Now, how long have you been going to that church? Is that the church you?
That's the church that was, it was in Pewsville. So I was in the church as a little girl in Pewsville. So then they moved the church. They started that on 17, everything started to boom, so the church bought property in Winter Haven on the other side. So that was in 1975. And I've been I grew up in the church, a little girl. So, I can try to keep my children in church too. I still the grandchildren and the children. I try to make sure that they have a part in the church too. So,
do you have any fond memories of when you were young in the church? You know, I guess did you go to Sunday school and?
Yes. We went to Sunday school, and we had to go. Yeah, we could not sit around, and I remember, well, my mother that was her church, and if you went to her house, you was gonna go to church. So I think about the time when Darren didn't bring his shoes to go to church, and she made him go to church without shoes on. He had to go to church. She said, you have to go to church without his shoes, so he had his feet under the bench, but he had to go. So she was very strict, you know, and that's how I learned to be strict with my kids. So
I love that. Oh, that sounds like my mom. We went to church no matter what,
yeah,
right?
You had to go. You had to go, and he didn't have on any shoes. He left his shoes home on purpose so he wouldn't have to go, but he had to end up going. He had to go to church. I reminded him, I think it hadn't been that long ago that I reminded him of the time when he sat with his feet up under the, he had to still go to church. But that was a must. You had to go to church, and that's why I'm still involved, and I've been heavily involved in the African Methodist Episcopal Church all of my life, you know, so president of the Missionary Society and everything. So I've done a lot in the church, and I'm still doing a lot in the church, and I try to make sure that they stay involved in the church.
Well, did you were there any other hobbies that you had over your life, or any other organizations that you wanted to mention or share any stories about?
What was that?
Did you have any time for hobbies?
I found some time for hobbies. I still did things, you know, and I enjoyed the kids too, because all of the neighborhood kids kind of stayed around. But I enjoyed, you know, a lot being with the kids and making sure that they did what they had to do. Yeah. That was my passion, so that's what we did. I've had a fruitful life, yeah, all of the years, and being 80 years old, I enjoy, you know, I look back and I enjoy the times that I had with them, and they still consider me, I think they're a good friend, and we do things together. We always do it. And I've traveled a lot. I have sisters and brothers that we still are close, and they look to me to answer questions or whatever, me being the oldest of the sisters and brothers.
Well, is there anything that you want to talk about or share that we haven't talked about or that we haven't covered? Is there anything I haven't asked you about?
I think we've pretty much covered it. Anything else that you need to ask about? I've had a fruitful life. I enjoyed everything that I've done and involved in. I think my passion was helping people, and that's what I enjoyed more of anything else. Kind of helping, being in the church and singing and doing whatever, and making sure that the children did what they were supposed to do. And I still do that, even though they're grown up. I had it written down. The grandchildren, I have 7 great-grands, 7 grands. I have the 3 children that are left, and they all have children. So we have a large family when we get together. But I've enjoyed it. I've really, it's been a passion for me to and then to be in the good health that I'm in. I'm never sick, never. And I like to travel. I've traveled. I've been out of the country several times. I enjoy, whatever I'd like to do. The sisters and brothers, they look up to me, to make sure that they do the right thing, and I'm still the mother. So I've enjoyed my life as I came through everything I came through, and we are still a family that bonds together. Yeah.
And you said that you had an 80th birthday party. Was that a big
Oh,
celebration?
Yes. I bought some of the pictures. That's what I brought with me. A lot of the pictures, all of the great-grands and the grands and the children, everybody had a very good time. So I bought some of those pictures. So I had a 79th, and then I had the 80 was the big one. So.
Well, I like that picture of you when you were just a little girl. How old were you in the picture with your cute little shoes on and your hair? Tell me about that picture.
I had to be probably around 3 years old. Yes, I was the only baby in the house at that time. Yes, the little Platts, and I was the only baby in the house, like I said. So I've enjoyed life, and I didn't know how this came about. I was trying to find out how this came about. Yeah. But now I see his name was on the paper that was signed, and Pat Smith called me and told me that she had recommended that I can come, and do this. But I've enjoyed it. It's been a pleasure to.
Well, you've had many, you and your family, you've had many years here in Polk County, and that's, unusual for people and families to just, stay in this location. How much of your family is still in Polk County now?
Pretty much all of them. We're most of them are still here in Polk County. Like my uncle Albertus, and all of his kids are still around, and all of my kids are still around, and most of them are still in Polk County. The grandchildren and the great grandchildren are still around. So I have some that are in Houston, Texas. And my granddaughter just recently got married, so I went to that wedding in Houston, and it was pretty. It was really nice. I really enjoyed that. So I'm glad, I'm thankful that I'm able to travel and still, I retired before I got where I couldn't do anything. So I'm still moving around and in good health. That's the best thing. That I'm still planning to travel some more and do some.
Can I go with you?
I went to Hawaii last year.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, I went to Hawaii last year, and I had a good time.
Well, you've had you've just done some amazing things throughout your life, and I just want to say thank you so much for coming and sharing some of your history. And like I said, it'll be there for your children, your grandchildren, great-grandchildren, and for other people to kind of get a glimpse of what what it was like at that time. And
yes.
So I just want to say thank you.
I really enjoyed it.
And thank you for joining us today. We hope to see you again soon.